So let's call this emergency meeting to order today, Tuesday, March 17th, close to 5:55. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Hudson.
Here.
Councilmember McKenzie. Here. Councilmember Simmons.
Present on conference call.
Vice Mayor Bettacavoli.
Here.
Mayor Samayoa.
Here. We have one item to discuss, is a proclamation declaring a local state of emergency by our Director of Emergency Services for the novel COVID-19 virus. The recommendation from staff is to pass a motion to approve the proclamation declaring a local state of emergency by the Director of Emergency Services for the novel COVID-19 virus. Ms. Brown.
As I've briefed all the council individually, in light of what's happening very quickly with the COVID-19 virus, it seemed appropriate that the city, like other local jurisdictions, declare a local state of emergency, and so that we would be eligible for mutual aid reimbursement, as well as other kinds of reimbursements for city staff time working on this current situation for however long it ends up lasting. So the county did adopt and declare a state of emergency as well, but we want to make sure that we're covered. I talked about it at length with the city attorney yesterday, and we have statute that would further verify that really it's a good idea for us to also do the same thing so that we can get those reimbursements if and when we need them.
Thank you. Questions from council members?
Yeah, through the chair.
Yes, sir.
Marty, when I talked to you last night, I asked you if you had talked to the county after they declared the state of emergency and where we might fall in that. Where do we stand in their declaration?
I have not had a chance, given what's been going on all day, to have a chance to talk with the county administrator. As you can imagine, we've been having lots of rapid fire meetings with 20, 25 people on a conference call, and I haven't been able to get a chance to talk with him since we spoke yesterday afternoon to today. So I had the city attorney actually look at the statute, and are you able to, you have the statute right there to
Yes.
read what actually the statute says and why we would want to do this?
Yes, there's two different sections that would apply in this case. One is Government Code 8632, which discusses state agencies may provide mutual aid, including personnel, equipment, and other available resources to assist political subdivisions during a local emergency or in accordance with mutual aid agreements or at the direction of the governor. And the second section is 8633. In the absence of a state of war, emergency, or state of emergency, the cost of extraordinary services incurred by political subdivisions in executing mutual aid agreements shall constitute a legal charge against the state when approved by the governor in accordance with ordinance and regulations promulgated as prescribed in 8567. So the bottom line is, effectively, we wouldn't have to rely upon Yuba County by stating this proclamation ourselves. We would be able to submit requests to the state in order for any reimbursements or things that may occur as a result of the COVID-19.
So the sole purpose is so we can just circumvent the billing process of any hours that we deem billable.
I mean, somewhat. We're a little bit at the mercy of the county, is my understanding, if we go through underneath their state of emergency declaration, as opposed to our own.
So, I'm sorry, run that by me again. This is us to be able to bill the state directly for...
That's correct.
Okay. So what is it, Marty, that we are thinking is going to be billable? The hours of the staff in the city hall, or are we talking about hours of extra law enforcement, extra fire? What are we talking about here?
It could be all of those things. It could be the staff time that's spent, the day and a half, almost 2 days I've spent just right now working on it, as well as public safety and emergency staff, any overtime that might be needed, which actually I've already had a conversation with the police chief today that might be coming under some other circumstances, and also in the event that we needed mutual aid, if for some reason the COVID-19 virus, ended up in Yuba County and in Marysville and caused a state of emergency with multiple cases that would require additional mutual aid. I mean, we're a fairly small fire department, as you know, so that's always a possibility. And all of those things are reimbursable.
So we're doing this as a thought process. We're just reimbursing what we've currently done. We're not projecting any sort of expenses in any way, shape, or form at this point?
Well, I'm expecting this to continue, actually, and possibly take some more of our time, maybe not always so much of my time, but other staff time in public safety is very likely. Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily retroactive. That I haven't investigated, but we're just at the very beginning stages right now, as from what I can tell and from what I'm hearing from the public health officer and both county administrators.
All right, thanks.
I just have a comment, and I just want to clarify for anybody who's watching out there that we still have no confirmed cases in Yuba County. But this is just a step, an administrative step for us to be able to recover costs should we incur them. But right now, we still have no cases here.
As of this afternoon, there are no confirmed cases in Yuba or Sutter counties.
Councilmember Simmons, you're there. You have any questions?
No, I'm right. I'm listening to you, looking good, or sounding good.
Any other-
I do contribute one thing. I did get a call from Supervisor Leahy this afternoon and said the council, the Board of Supervisors is meeting at 4:30 to do the same thing we're doing. So I just share that with you.
So, through the chair, they haven't actually declared anything yet?
According to what we were able to find online, March 10th was the date that they declared, yes. So I'm not sure that that's exactly right. I do know that they're having more meetings today, but I don't know that it's about, I can't see why it would be about declaring a state of emergency, because from what we can see and what we've, the phone calls we've made to Yuba County City Clerk's office, they declared on March 10th.
Let me clarify that through the chair. I probably misspoke when I said the proclamation. I was talking about rendering the county to complete shutdown, if you will. So that's what they were meeting at 4:30 about.
So, I'm sorry, Bill, you said that the county's meeting to discuss a complete shutdown of what?
All of the county offices as recommended by the governor and the President of the United States.
Okay.
And following the lead with the other counties within the state of California.
I think they're talking about, what the Bay
I'm
Area
sorry?
what the Bay Area has done and Sacramento just did, and
Yes, exactly, Mayor.
Any comment? Or?
sure, go ahead.
As the council has also been apprised of, I've had multiple meetings daily now, two today actually, with the public health officer, both county administrators as well as other local administrators in the Bi-County region, and the conversation has been talking about whether or not to declare and implement a shelter in place, what's called shelter in place, which is the same thing as the Bay Area is doing right now, and Sacramento, I believe, has done that as of yesterday. So both counties are looking at, through the public health officer, at declaring the same thing here as well. It's just, I think, it's not if, it's when that's going to. And in that case, would be a directive asking people to stay in their houses and, limit their going outside and, going to only crucial places like supermarkets and pharmacies and doctor's appointments and those kinds of things would be part of the directive. I think it's going to be. Yeah, essential services, correct. And I think it'll be a little different than what happened in the Bay Area because we're not as an urbanized area. So I think they're looking at maybe language that would be different, that would be more appropriate for a rural setting than for like an urbanized area like the Bay Area. So I have not seen anything yet. So far, it's just been a conversation.
Before you go, so does that mean, but as a city, are we allowed to, do we have to comply with the county's direction, or we as a city can add or change, not necessarily change, but like supplement their direction?
When a public health officer makes the determination that is very possibly going to come soon, my understanding, I don't know if you want to defer here, but my understanding is that the city has to comply, everyone in that county has to comply with the directive of a public health officer. And then that, whatever direction that she would be recommending would have to be approved by both, in Dr. Lou's case, both Board of Supervisors, because she basically reports up through both of those. She's the Bi-County Public Health Officer.
So, I guess I'm just speaking, like I think of like a city of San Jose within the Santa Clara County. They seem to be able to modify or at least express their own list of what is essential within their jurisdiction, aside from the Santa Clara, defining what essential is.
Well, from the conversations I've had so far, the arena in which some of that is happening, they that leave the language in the directive and the declaration somewhat open-ended, and that's the area in which there is more liberty
Okay.
to make some decisions. And then there's some areas where it'll be much more clear and defined, and so there is a mix of both.
So right now, to be clear, we're not talking about that specifically.
No,
We're talking about us.
not at all.
Declaring an emergency, local emergency proclamation that would allow us to go to the state after, certain time to say, hey, and the state declares that, hey, cities and counties, you're eligible to reimbursement for services related to you providing services related to the COVID-19. As long as you created this proclamation, right? As long as you did this proclamation emergency, then you're eligible for these reimbursements. I guess we're trying to protect ourselves to assure that we're eligible for those things. Aside from that, it's not really saying how we're going to effectively distribute our resources or our services where there's police or fire. That's not what we're talking about.
That's
right now.
correct. This is purely for reimbursement purposes.
Any other comments, questions, Mr. Hudson?
Nope.
Mr. Simmons?
No, sir, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Buttafuoli? I see you thinking.
No,
You got the thinking hat.
I just think you clarified it pretty well, and it's just a matter of being prepared in case there's a need for funds down the road. What I was curious of, or if we even know any of this at this point, but when we talk about those emergency funds for services and that, have you heard at all, are there going to be state funds available for affected small businesses? Or is that so far all we've heard is from the feds?
So
That they're talking about it. Do we know at all?
I don't have any further information, but I mean, assuming with what's happening in terms of the outpouring of local resources, I would assume that they're going to put forward some budget or funds to help alleviate. But so far, I don't have anything factual to share with you.
Let me rephrase that question, because I thought I just heard the governor talking about it. If there were funds available, we would need this proclamation to go through even on that type of a thing.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
Whether it's reimbursement of services or helping small businesses or community members, we need this for that.
Right.
Correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
So, clarification through the chair, are you stating that if we do decide to approve this, that we could potentially, as a city, decide to augment small businesses through any sort of funding that may be capable, or are we just talking about for public safety services and city services only?
I think we're going into places where we might not know those answers, just because I don't think that the state has kind of provided that guidance. I think what we're saying is public services, public dollars that we're currently spending on this issue, on this emergency, eventually, hopefully, will be reimbursed. If the state says, I believe like someone like Sacramento, I think they're putting out dollars from their general fund or wherever fund public dollars and saying these dollars are dedicated for local businesses or small businesses to support them during this crisis. I don't think they're thinking they're going to get reimbursed for that. So I think we want to be clear. I think what we're talking about is public services dedicated for this particular emergency that the city's spending. The hope is by doing this emergency declaration that we'll be hopefully eligible to get reimbursement. Like during the, we got reimbursed for the river bottoms and that, when the waters came down and destroyed a lot of our, our facilities and stuff, and we got some reimbursement dollars for that, to pay for that. The hope is that this will allow us to be able to get some of those dollars, right? We don't want to confuse the private sector, because the private sector could be, if the government says, the government hasn't stated that yet.
My question just was,
Yeah.
not are there dollars available, or will there be dollars available? My question was, if at some point that happens, is this what we're going to need for that purpose also? And it looks like the answer is yes. We would most likely need this no matter what, if at some point those funds do become. So what I'm just saying, I think it's even, the importance of this is even more so in case it does come down to private dollars being available.
Correct. Dollars for private sector is available,
Yeah.
correct?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, we don't, yes, I think so. In my mind, we need to do this because we'll be eligible for those reimbursements.
And the other thing to keep in mind, it doesn't hurt anything to do it. We're not, there's only something to benefit.
There any questions from the public out there?
No, but we have about 7 people watching.
Okay. If there are questions from folks watching, you're more than welcome to state them through Ted. We appreciate his willingness to be here.
She's
goes
online
through-
watching, she'll do it.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Nicole.
Thank you.
City clerk.
She is also monitoring.
Okay,
The
wonderful.
city clerk will monitor, and, yeah.
Mayor, are you going to do the regularly scheduled meeting?
Yes, next, yes.
Okay.
It's just, we had to do this first. We called it and we're moving forward. Okay, there's no questions or comments from the council, and there's no questions from the public out there. I'd like to entertain a motion. Thank you. A motion would be to pass a motion to approve this proclamation declaring the local state of emergency by Director of Emergency Services for the novel COVID-19 virus. Motion is made by Councilmember McKenzie. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Mayor Baracowoli. All those in favor say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Against?
No.
Aye.
The motion is approved by a vote of 4-1. Let's move to, next item is going to be,
Regular meeting?
we're moving to our regular meeting of the City Council, which will be called to order now at 6:14. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Hudson?
Here.
Councilmember McKenzie?
Here.
Councilmember Simmons?
Here.
Vice Mayor Baracowoli?
Here.
And Mayor Samayoa?
Here. Let's move to a pledge of allegiance. I ask everyone to please rise to the pledge of allegiance. Ready, pledge. I pledge allegiance
For all.
Are there any changes to our agenda, Ms. Brown?
There are none.
Thank you. Any closed session report?
No.
Thank you. The city attorney saying no. Let's move to community consent calendar. We do let you know that due to the current federal and state regional recommendations and guidance, we'll be allowing more time for questions to be presented from the public, as they are now only coming through Facebook. Each citizen asking questions will still have a total of 3 minutes to speak. So we do tell you that individuals wishing to address the City Council concerning consent calendar items or matters not already on the agenda, we invite you to make oral comments of up to 3 minutes. We do tell you that by state law, the council is not permitted to undertake any action or discussion on any items not appearing on the posted agenda. Any members of the public out there like to make a comment?
At this time, no, Mayor.
And keep in mind, Mayor, that there is about a minute to a minute and a half delay between what you say and the time that the general public may see it on their computers or handheld devices. So there's that lag time, and Nicole may see some questions pop up at some point in time.
If they do come up, please let me know. Thank you. Well, let's move to the consent calendar. If there are folks out there who have questions, please ask them, and I'll be sure to give you the floor. All matters on the consent calendar are considered to be routine and therefore approved by one motion unless any of the members of the council or the city managers request the matter to be removed from the consent calendar for separate discussion and action. What's the will of the council?
I move to
Move to
approve the
approve.
consent calendar. I'll second that.
The motion is made by Councilmember Simmons, second by Councilmember McKenzie. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion is approved with a vote of 5-0. Let's move to item 3 of discussion and action items to vacate Elm Street between 2nd and 3rd Streets. The recommendation is to pass the resolution to vacate the portion of Elm Street between 2nd and 3rd. This recommendation comes from our Community Development Director, Mr. Wright. Sir?
Yes, good evening, Mayor. Good evening, council members. Jonathan Wright, Community Development. Frank Booth's staff wanted to be here today to kind of explain this a little bit better than probably I can, but I think most of you are familiar with the Frank M. Booth compound over there. It takes up one block. Between 2nd and 3rd Street is their main building. Running through that area is what most people think of as an alleyway, but it's actually a designated city street known as Elm Avenue. They have requested the vacation of that street, which bifurcates their facility. They're stating that it makes maneuvering difficult. They run into another number of safety issues there, and because they have to secure both sides of the street there with fencing and buildings, they can't get in and out of some of their main bays for their building. So staff has met with or contacted all utilities owning all utility companies owning utilities in that area, as well as meeting with the fire department out on site, and no negative responses have been generated based off those contacts. Fire department is requesting that we maintain fire lanes in an agreement with them so that they'll make sure that they continue to maintain those fire lanes, and we'll have to allow subsequent utility easements for any existing utilities that do run through that street. This action is a two-part action. Tonight we're asking you to pass a resolution of intent, which will allow me to go out and post the property and provide notice that on April 7th at our regularly scheduled meeting, we will be having a public hearing on the matter. So this is just one of 2 steps. Hopefully at that point, Frank and Booth's people can come and explain the situation a little bit better. So tonight we're just asking to move forward. Mayor?
Thank you. Can you repeat what you're asking from us? I was kind of a little bit busy, sorry.
Yes, Mayor, we're asking you to pass a resolution of intent to vacate the portion of Elm Street between 2nd and 3rd Streets in Marysville.
Thank you. Questions? Questions, Mr. Simmons, council member?
No, I think it's a good idea.
Any comments from the public?
At this time.
Give them
Do we need a motion?
Do we need a motion? Move to approve the motion? What
I was trying to give the public, some time, sorry, since there was a delay, but do we still got folks watching?
Yes, we have 9 people watching,
Oh.
and there is a link to the complete agenda that people can
Okay.
use to look at the documents.
So folks, if you have any questions, seeing none, this is weird, but I know, I'm trying to help, the public to be a
Mr.
part
Mayor?
of this. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
will
Mr.
that
Simmons.
street be renamed or the name be deleted off that street?
That's a
Since
good
it's no
question.
longer going to be a street, it's going to be a continuation of the 2 property lines. Should the economic developer suggest that we delete that name?
That's a good question, sir.
So yes, Councilor Simmons, if we were to vacate that portion, it would no longer be a city street, therefore would no longer be titled Elm Street. That will not stop the remainder of the street, which will continue on either side of the property, heading north and south. So Elm Street still does bifurcate the city through the downtown area, but this portion of it will no longer be accessible to the public and therefore no longer be called Elm Street.
Good, I was curious, because I don't want people to be looking for Elm Street between those two streets and not be there.
Well, next time you get invited to a party. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, right. Thank you.
Through the chair.
Yes, sir.
My question being, is that whole piece vacated to Booth's, what would that be, their west portions of property?
When we
So in other words, the other people to the east side that still connect to that, they're not getting, the whole alley would go with the west part, right? Or is it just an additional parcel that now goes to Frank M. Booth?
Councilor Buttipoli, the way that vacations work is they're public lands and they have to be vacated back to the properties in which they came from. This will basically split the street down the middle and provide one half to the east side, one half to the west side. Currently, as far as I know, Booth owns both sides of that alley or roadway.
I'm not sure that they do, but that was answered my question.
They do, or at least
Down there
in
where-
a site visit, they confirmed recently they've acquired that very south. I think you're thinking about the south
Mike
east
Sullivan.
side.
Now where W.V. Alton's sheet metal shop is.
They bought that.
They bought that?
Yeah,
Oh, okay, then that settles that. But it does split the center both ways.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, good questions. Any other comments from the public?
Still none.
Okay, let's move forward to entertain a motion to pass a resolution with this intent.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by McKenzie, second by Hudson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Mr. Simmons, what's your vote?
I got it. Hey,
What's your vote, sir?
aye.
Aye.
Are you still there?
Yes, we hear you now. The vote's 5-0.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. The vote, the motion is approved with a vote of 5-0. I'm not having a good time with this. Item 4, Ellis Lake baseline water and sediment sampling results. Recommendation is to pass a motion directing staff to work with Yuba Water Agency to develop a comprehensive nutrient management plan to address Ellis Lake water quality issues, and 2, to receive and file attached technical memorandum of Ellis Lake baseline water and sediment sampling results. This report comes from our Public Works Director, Mr. Platt, sir.
Evening, Mayor and council member and public. So what we're doing is, in the summer of 2019, the city of Marysville expressed the interest in seeking a grant for technical support from the Yuba Water Agency in order to develop an Ellis Lake master plan. Shortly thereafter, the Yuba Water Agency and the city established Ellis Lake Ad Hoc Committee. And as part of the project with the city, as we all know, came about from the wastewater treatment plant to do a water quality improvement project, which was also then chosen under Ellis Lake. About 2 months ago, the city started working with the ad hoc committee, members of that committee, and joined resources as far as the water quality testing moving forward, so we both weren't doing testing of the lake. And we've combined those efforts, which has grown into this first report, which is one report in a series of reports that are coming in the future. So this is the baseline, which identified some key issues and some concerns that actually was not expecting, which was water quality in the city's well, which is basically recycling lake water into Ellis Lake. There are qualities within the well that aren't normally you would find in the groundwater, so it was a very unfortunate finding and one we're going to have to address. So what this has pointed out is a problem that is very common to water bodies all over. which is the high levels of nutrients and the phosphorus and the nitrogen in the lake, which is what is spawning the algae blooms, which contribute to obviously the green water, floating algae on the lake, and also the smell. And what has come up within that, and I've provided a lot of information about nutrient management, and this is not common to the city of Marysville. It's actually very common in these types of water bodies, and especially shallow water bodies, because also you're dealing with the temperature. The city over the years has actually done some nutrient management.
Lost you.
If you speak on the thing, maybe he can hear you.
Have actually done, performed some nutrient management with algicides, which is not the best method because it has an adverse effect on your aquatic life and your plant life. Over the years, and we know that the high levels of algae can also become toxic, which is have been noted in some of the ducks and waterfowl around the lake that have occasionally passed away. So I'm not going to go into their report in detail, other than to point out of what was identified as far as what do we want to do with the lake? What is the end goal? And I think that's what I really, in doing the report, came out to there's three recreational things that we need to look at. Is the water contact recreation, the non-contact, and the freshwater or warm freshwater habitat. There's no general criteria of saying that we have to do any of these things. The water quality within the lake is basically the city's to manage. It is a stormwater catch basin, which you would see these. So it's what do we want from the lake? What is our goal? What is the council's desire of what do we want to do with the lake? I don't think we're trying to reach the goal of it's a swimming lake is one that we should try for or even push for. Fishing, boating would be staff's recommendation that would be the goals. Eliminate the algae, eliminate the smells, make it a very nice recreation area where you can go in there and have a nice picnic and not smell the high levels of algae and phosphorus that the lake is putting off. So it's a multifaceted approach is what we're proposing. It's tied to the fountain is a big part because of the quantity of water that circulate to add oxygen within the water. It's the aerators. It's the well, and also at some point, I think the Yuba water connection has to be looked at. Is it valid the way it is today? No. It's going to require a lot of work and money to do that, but do I think we throw it out the window? No. I think in discussions that we have already entertained with the Yuba Water Agency, there's a desire. They have obviously a lot better state contacts than the city and would be well of us to partner with them to actually research that and try to get funding to do that, to take either the city's water rights, water quality is their mission, and improving the water quality in the lake is what we're looking for direction. Where does the city want to go with the lake? A nutrient management plan is a must, but it includes all those things. We're researching documentation on the city's well right now. That well is extremely close. It's a high output well. It pumps about 2,000 gallons a minute. But we are recycling basic lake water in that well, which is concerning for other reasons. It's a submerged well, so it's actually pumping water directly into the water without there's no air gap. So it has a potential to possibly backdraft when that well is turned off and or siphon. It was not sealed. We've got that part of the information right now. It was drilled as an ag well in '79. It was not sealed. Originally was told that it was a open bottom well. It's not an open bottom well. It actually has perforations, and we're looking at that right now to see what can be done to address the groundwater from the well. So those are one of the things we need to research and fix. Coming up with a nutrient management, which is chemical, not an algistat. There's a new product that was put out on the market in around 2012, which was False Lock, which has had great success in actually binding. It permanently binds the phosphorus within the lake. So we're looking at the costs on that right now and researching what that would look like, how often you'd have to do that. There's other things that we can do in conjunction with the city's fountain, and having that run steadily is very important. Over the last 10 years, I know that fountain has not run very often, and for the last 20 years, it was put on a very short schedule, and it was due to operating cost. And then the last 10, it was operational issues that stopped it from running. So we've addressed a lot of those. As you know, right now we're doing testing, so we're running it basically between 9 and 3. But that has a huge significance to the groundwater or the water quality in the lake because of the volume water that it actually pumps. So it's running right now somewhere between 500 and 1,000 gallons a minute. And that exposure, I know there was a question out there that came in about basically when you break the water service, the water for the fountain is right out of the lake. It's not actually groundwater, it is lake water. And that it is oxygenated, and it actually overflows the fountain and then runs back down a channel or stream bed that was built off of the backside of the fountain that goes back into the water body.
Don't you have to have some new water? Because otherwise it would just dry up with evaporation?
Well, we're pumping 5 days a week right now out of the well into the.
I guess what I heard, we're just kind of recycling the same water.
And that's very important. A fountain is key to maintaining.
I'm sorry, let me go back. The well, are you saying that the well is just using the same water and recycling?
Not 100%.
100%, okay.
But there's water qualities of the lake in the well water. So we're going to further test that. We're not quite sure how long it was running when they pulled the samples. So we're actually going to run it longer to get a better idea and moving forward of what actually is that. But it was discouraging, and it was easy to see right away when we first addressed the report that it's pulling lake water into the well. And that's what we'll do on our next test. So we're going to test that well. We're going to test one of the other wells that's on the peninsula on the other side that's used for irrigation only, that's also fairly close to the water, and see how that tests and reacts. So it may be a combination of using a different well, putting something another place, water circulation, and obviously putting good quality water in the lake is something is a must. Putting water in there that's already tainted is not the best idea. But there's other concerns why we need to address that.
Repairing that.
Yes.
Right, correct.
So you can, and I've done this on wells before that have had a leak or a hole. You can go in there and sleeve those. We're looking at the perforation levels to see where they landed those, and if they have high perforations versus the deep perforations, because we want to pull deep water. We don't want to pull the shallow water and find out. But if it wasn't sealed, it could be infiltrating that just for the fact that they didn't build that to municipal standards at all. It was built to ag standards back at the time. All wells today have to be sealed, ag or not. This well was not. So all of those things are really important. So chemical is a must. The well water quality or the Yuba River quality, I think are all long-term goals. And what we're really looking for is to create a nutrient management, which would include all of those things.
Okay, I was gonna
Moving
ask that.
forward. And one thing I'm working on with the Yuba Water Agency is that in some meeting we had last week, is there is a possibility of the agency actually funding not just the project we're working on, but also operational expenses moving forward to actually run that well full-time like it should be. Or not the well, but the fountain. And obviously the aerators and whatever we're doing to operate that. So we've talked about the budget. So those are things that obviously I've got to put together is an operational budget. And obviously it's going to take council support to say what do we want to do with the lake.
How often are you doing these, you said this is a baseline set of data. How often are you doing these tests or these samples?
We're under the state jurisdiction, Department of Water Resources, you know, but we're doing them monthly. So we'll pull once the aerators have run a full month, we'll pull the test. So we have basically 3 tests, and then we have a final report to submit to the state.
And outside of that, I mean, the hope is to continue doing those type of...
If we want the lake to be a pristine, quality fishery or asset to the city, yes, that's my recommendation, that we have to come up with a multifaceted approach that's going to require work on the well or new well, the Yuba River connection, which is, in my opinion, isn't going to be a short one, but I think it should be looked at for the long term. And obviously chemical, which Phoslock right now looks like there's a couple. There's a wood product also that we can put in conjunction with that also binds phosphorus and the nitrates. And
seals.
Huh?
The seals, the nitrogen seals.
Yeah, it's actually made here in California, but there is a wood product, and it's called something char. I can't think of it off the top of my head. It's in my report.
Let me just clarify. When you're talking about the nutrient management plan, can you just kind of clear up what that all includes? Again, I know you kind of talked about it right now, but I just want to make sure that we're all kind of on the same page. The nutrient management plan is going to include all those things you kind of described right now, including the analysis of our well, looking at, and it seems to me that that's going to be an important thing to kind of figure out. If we had a regular well that had a sealed, that new water will actually improve the health of the lake, or in addition to the aeration and the fountain, plus maybe we look at bringing water from the river. I mean, all those things. I imagine you have to take it step by step, but that's what you're saying about nutrient management plan.
It's looking at all of it, a better quality water source than just runoff from the city streets. That's not a good water source. So it's the water source, it's the aerators. Those play an important role, the design of the aerators. The nutrient management, which is chemical. And then the well and the Yuba water connection. It is all of those things. And the willingness to put the budget and actually manage the lake. So you can't do it by just dumping chemicals in there. You have to have the aeration. You got to add oxygen. So the fountains are vital. The aerators are vital, whether we go farther with that. I think the tests in 3 months will tell us what effect that's had on it. But normally it would be all of those. So if you're going to improve the water quality, it's tied to all of that. It's not just, the nutrient management is not just adding chemicals, it's all of those things.
I guess, Craig, I agree with you, but the way you wrote it here is comprehensive nutrient management. And so in my mind, that kind of closed it down to more like almost chemical or nutrient related things. Like, it's almost like you have a comprehensive health water management plan.
Yeah, but nutrients is all of that.
Okay.
It's water quality, it's chemical, it's aeration, that affects your nutrients is basically the oxygen that you're putting into the water. It's the stagnant that actually causes a lot of these to grow.
Okay, thank you. I just playing with words, but I think,
Yeah.
thank you for defining that. Is that all your report?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions from our council members?
I have a couple, naturally.
Yes. Go ahead.
I'd like to make an observation. Unless the nutrients that are feeding that lake are taken care of, no matter what you do with a comprehensive mitigation plan, management plan, nutrient management plan, you're talking about redoing the storm system, because that feeds right into that. That's where the biggest part of your nutrients are coming from. It's not from the water itself. There's a phosphorus coming in there. But, I think when you start talking about doing a management plan, nutrient management plan, you're talking about a 2 to 3 year process on developing that plan alone, and it's going to cost thousands of dollars to do that, because it's just not an easy thing to say, well, we want to do this, we want to check the well. That's not what a plan's about. So we need to be very careful what we're asking for here, and be very careful that we don't set our standards so high that we can't do anything unless we redesign the whole system, storm drain system, and all the nutrients coming off of fertilizers from the yards, the gas, the oil, everything else in the road. That's where your nutrients are coming from. It's not coming from the water. So anyway, I have some definite ideas on that. I think we might be taking a comprehensive management plan and putting that into hundreds of thousands of dollars to do that study, because there's no shortcut on it, disregarding what our colleague from our Public Works Director said. That's a very extensive program, and it all came from farming. That's how that all started, the septic systems on cows. And now it's evolved. If you do some research on that on Google, you'll find that it's a very involved process and very costly process. So I just throw that out for you guys who are sitting on that committee, making sure you understand what you're talking about, in as much as the design of a plan like that. And is the water agency willing to step up pay $1.5 million or whatever it might be for that plan? And it's really strange too, gentlemen and ladies, that for many, many years they put bluestone in that lake, cleared it up during the hot weather, and pumped Yuba River water from the river and ice house. We never had a problem with it. Now all of a sudden, we've got all these nutrients, pumps are bringing back in, we're recycling pump water. It just doesn't make sense to me to spend all that money on a project that you could fix maybe $1 million. And it all sits on that Yuba River pump. So I've said this before, and I'll say it again, and I've got a year to go, and I'm going to continue to say it. We're missing the boat if we don't put that as a priority and get that pump going. Thank you, Mayor, for your time. I yield my time.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments?
Yeah, the only thing I'd like to say here is, you've asked us that we're going to need to decide, I hope you don't mean tonight, but at some point, what level we want to take the lake to. And I brought this up at the ad hoc meeting, that I don't think we can decide on that until we know somewhat what our costs are going to be. Obviously, if it's affordable to make it swimming water, which I don't think it is, but my point being, if it was affordable, we would go that far. So again, I'm not sure if you were asking us to make that decision tonight on what level we wanted to go with it.
No, because some of these things we can't even impose right now, because one is we have to complete the study, which was part of our Department of Water Resources directive. So right now, we're just working on the fountain, and we're going to continue taking the tests based on the aerators and define where we are by July. And there are chemical things, and I'm not saying to go spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on a comprehensive plan. There are some things that we already know based off of the water quality things of what we're going to have to do. Binding the nitrogen or phosphorus is a key to dealing with the algae bloom, and we can do those types of things, but we can't do any of that until we complete the testing and the final report, which is due in June, July. So what I'm asking is we'll continue to move forward with the fountain. We'll continue running and operating that, which will also contribute to water quality. And moving forward, and all of that is part of coming up with a nutrient management plan.
Thank you. Any other questions for staff? Comments from folks on Facebook?
Not yet.
No. Okay, well. My only comment in this is I think we have to rely on science. I'm happy that we're doing these tests and have a base of information and data that we can use and then be able to see some change, hopefully, with the aeration project that we have going that we have to complete, with the use of our fountain, which we are very happy and very, you know, that the Yuba Water Agency is stepping up and helping us in supporting the costs associated with it, getting the pump going. And based on some of the committee feedback last week that Councilmember Vice Mayor Buttercawoli and I participated in, it seems like they're willing to really consider paying for the pump being used for you know, for a consistent time throughout, you know, to be used. You know, someone said 24/7, and they didn't seem to shy away from that. I'm not sure if we necessarily need it 24/7, but if that's what they're willing to maybe support, that'd be great. But we're looking forward to using the science and the numbers to be able to make those determinations whether that's the best use of resources. Aside from that, I think that also the Water Agency has very clearly stated that they're interested in using data and analyzing the data and making decisions based on the data to support their decision-making on whether or not what level of support and resources and monies they want to provide to the city to be able to move forward on this type of management plan. We need this management plan to direct us to support our you know, what direction we take, and we appreciate the Water Agency in saying and very clearly stating that they're interested in supporting those efforts. So I think we move forward on the staff recommendations to move forward and develop this comprehensive nutrition management plan to deal with the water quality issues. And at the same time, I'd like to ask on the same motion to receive and file the attached technical memorandum of Ellis Lake baseline water and sediment sampling results.
So moved.
A motion by Councilmember McKenzie. Is there a
Question.
second? Yes, sir.
I'm not exactly sure what we're voting on here still.
We're voting on their staff recommendation to develop a comprehensive nutrient management plan to address Ellis Lake,
Okay.
to move forward on it. And I think your question was very good in the sense that we're not going to know where we want to go unless we have this data available for us to be able to support whether, if it's affordable, if it makes sense to us to spend the resources to make it a swimmable place, then we move forward. But eventually they're going to let us know how far we can get with the amount of resources that we can spend, and the Water Agency may be willing to contribute as well. So I think we need this data to be able to move forward on all the different, you know, choices that we may have, whether it's bringing river water or a combination of aeration, the fountain, dealing with the current nutrients and sealing those, all those things. Hopefully the data will tell us what's the best use of public resources to make the choices. So there was a motion. Did that kind of answer, or did I just kind of talked too much?
No, that's great, thank you.
Thank you. Motion by Ms. McKenzie. Is there a second?
Second that, Mayor, I'll second that, but I'd like to discuss on this a little bit.
Okay,
after
the
you
motion
get
is second. Let's
if I
open
may.
up for discussion. Go ahead, council member.
I'm just curious, I think sometime the city council is going to have a closed session, not a closed session, but a session with you and Bruce Buckbully and whomever else is involved in this, and sit down and give direction to you guys as to what we want to do with this lake. You know, I understand this comprehensive management plan is going to help us do that, but sometime we're going to have to sit down and make a determination what we, the city council and the city of Marysville, want done to that lake, based upon the information we have. And do we have the budget to support that? So, our work isn't done yet. And no matter what the ad hoc committee comes up with, our work isn't done, because we haven't determined just exactly what level we want to raise that lake to. You have to remember, that's a storm drain lake. That isn't a recreational lake. It's a storm drain.
I think
So,
you brought up a great point, Councilmember Simmons. This is the city's lake, and it's the council's responsibility to assure the health of the water in Ellis Lake, and I think,
Absolutely.
yeah, and so I agree with you in the sense that we want to make sure that this is a council decision, not an ad hoc committee decision on how we move forward. It has to be a council decision because we're in charge of that lake. In a sense, we're giving that responsibility.
Well, I yield my comment to you and go on, because I think that has to be sometime in the near future. We're going to have to sit down, and I don't know how long, Mayor, this comprehensive plan is going to take. Is it going to be 2 years long? Is it going to be a year long? I think those questions need to be asked. We're voting on the ad hoc committee working with the water agency, but I'd like to know how long it's going to take. What's the timeline? Is it 2 years down the line before we get that report?
That's a good question.
So,
Mr. Platt?
thank you, Mayor.
No, I actually don't believe it's going to take us that long to figure out. If you base it on the report, the baseline report, we know the things we have to address. And so I don't think it's as complicated as that. We need to deal with the water source. We need to deal with the existing nutrients in there. We already have the report. We know what they are, and we know how to deal with those. So I don't think it's as long a process as that.
Well, I hope you're right, sir.
Okay.
I hope you're right. But anyway, I'm 100% behind it. I just think that we have to figure out where the nutrients are coming from, and that's part of that survey. So, motor on, I guess is the word we say, right?
Yes. Thank you. If there's no further comments,
Thank you.
If no further comments, I'd like to take a vote. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Hudson?
Yes.
Councilmember McKenzie?
Yes.
Councilmember Simmons?
I
Mr.
didn't hear you.
Your vote, sir?
Are you asking me now?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll give an aye vote.
Vice Mayor Betticavoli?
Yes.
Mayor Samayoa?
Yes. The vote's approved with the vote of 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Simmons.
Thank you, council.
Thank you. This is fun, Councilmember Simmons.
Yeah, it is.
You're like a
I'm
robot.
sorry my quality of the audio is so bad. I'm new to my house phone.
I'm sorry.
I think you guys should already hook up some speakers or something. But yeah, it's going very well. And thank you for asking me. I appreciate it.
Let's move to item 5. Confirm and approve face cost recovery approach using the Fire Recovery USA program recommendation. The recommendation from staff is to pass a motion to approve staff's recommended face cost recovery approach and continuing to implement the Fire Recovery USA program. Chief Carlin.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Before you, as you stated, is looking for approval of staff's recommendation. We've outlined this in a way that we heard from the previous time we brought forward how we were giving an update and managing the fire recovery program. I think you're aware of the background of what it is we're billing for and how this came about. On the back page of most importance under the discussion analysis, we've kind of listed out the 4 clearly identified ways that we are handling the situations and scenarios that have come in so far. So I'm more than happy to answer any questions on those. And so far, as of today, we've claimed about $21,000 in revenues from this program. So we are on track from what fire recovery had projected, with the first year being around $50,000 for revenues. That's end of report.
Questions?
I have a question. How's it been going with the billing? Have you been billing in this manner for all the circumstances
Yeah,
already?
we have been following these principles thus far. A couple, scenarios where we've had phone calls or questions, we've kind of grouped together with the city manager and discussed those things. That's how we've kind of gotten to fine tuning to where we are today. And also working with fire recovery on how they handle not just us, but other cities in similarity. So we're trying to stick to the standards. So, it's difficult to have every agency having their own specific criteria. So we're trying to roll with what's been vetted out from attorneys and legal folks, that we're, in the right line of how we're charging and doing things. So far it seems to be working pretty good. We have had a couple of phone calls and we address them as they come up. And so far it's been working out well.
One more question. Are these very close to or the same as other cities?
Yep, this does fall.
All items?
Yeah, this does fall in alignment with these four criteria, now that we've kind of got it dialed to how their other programs are set up for other cities.
Okay. And what are the phone calls?
We've had
Regarding-
a couple phone calls. One was from the person at a structure fire here in town who, didn't have the insurance that covered our response. And so, as part of it is just explaining the process of how the invoicing is handled. So, people might get an invoice, asking to pay it, but because of the Marysville resident situation, we're not, pursuing to collections. So, there's some uncertainty with people who get those invoices like they have to pay. And so we just have to clarify those, concerns to them and to let them know that if their insurance isn't paying that portion of it, that we're not taking them to collections and we'll drop the invoice.
Go ahead.
Are we getting calls that are started with in the homeless camps or any of that? The calls that you're talking about, are any of them started with the homeless camps?
We do respond to nuisance fires from homeless encampments, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, that's a better way to put it. Yes, that's what I'm asking. Is it substantial?
We run a number of calls to the homeless encampments and to the Thorn Tree, the Hollywood Trailer Park areas, river bottom areas. Yes, it's a frequent thing that we respond to.
That would all fall under negligence?
It could. Some of those fires are accidental. They're just trying to stay warm and they set something on fire. So as we have identified as kind of which we deem as like gross negligence type situations, if somebody burns somebody's stuff down, that's, intent and very negligent. The other issue is, we can take their information all day long if they'll give it to us, but they have no funds to,
Right.
no insurance, no funds, no, it's almost a
I'm
dead
just
end.
curious how much of that is part of what we're running into. Also, have we run into any situations where it has been negligence, where we've had to go after the person directly?
We have had one case where,
A Marysville resident specifically?
Well, the way this is reading with that all Marysville responsible parties, it says, under negligence.
we've only had one negligent issue that was sent to collections, and it was a resident outside of Marysville. That's the only one so far, and I think it's still in progress. I haven't heard an outcome of, where it's at. But we have not taken any Marysville residents into collection so far. It's only been one case.
Thank you.
Through the chair.
Yes, sir.
Item 3, Chief, discussion and analysis, Mayor. It says all Marysville responsible parties, invoices submitted to insurance carrier. If no payment from the carrier, invoice issued to the responsible party. If no payment made, no further action. That seems a little flaky to me. Why are we allowing people, because I don't want to pay, I don't going to respond to it, so you're going to write it off? That's what that's saying.
Chief?
So you invoice me, insurance,
I think that's I circle that area too, sir, by the way. I want to share that I circle the same spot.
okay, well, if you want to carry it from one, go ahead, because it's easier for you than it is me on this telephone. So I'll yield to you, Mayor.
Want to say something?
Go ahead.
Okay, so, the way that we came up with this list and the if-then statements kind of thing that you're seeing here was really based on the feedback that we thought we heard at the December 3rd workshop and presentation. And so we thought what we heard was ask people to pay, but if they don't pay and they're Marysville residents, don't take it to collections. So that's what we came up with. But if the council wants to do something different, certainly we can make an amendment.
Excuse me for interrupting, but I know that we discussed that, and I know that we said that the police department, fire department, wanted to exempt residents of Marysville from this process, and I think we said, no, we don't want to do that, if I remember correctly, and I don't remember ever saying no further payment no action taken.
I think the difference was, council member, is if they were negligent. If they did something negligent, then at that point, then if they're residents and they're negligent on causing, the issue, then we would go after them. If they're not negligent, if there's an accident and after the investigation it showed that it was an accident
No fault.
and no fault, then we wouldn't go after our local residents.
Yep. I just feel that that's not the way we should be doing business, exempting people because they don't pay. If you sent me a bill for $15,000 and my insurance carrier is not going to pay it, and I'm not going to pay it, then you're going to write that off because I don't want to pay it?
Only if you're negligent. If you were not negligent, then we're not going to go after you.
But I'm not negligent. I'm not negligent. I was sitting there cooking a piece of meat on the stove and the oil caught on fire. And it burnt my house down. I'm just using this as an example. If that's the way the council wants to go, so be it. But it just seems like we're saying, hey, you don't want to pay your bills, so we'll forgive you, whether you're negligent or not negligent.
Well,
it's a service that we rendered. We paid for it. Our troops went out. They did what they had to do. It's a rapid response activity. So, anyway.
well, I guess the way I see it, and we can go either way, but bottom line is, folks in my mind are already paying their property taxes. And so they're paying their property taxes. They hope that when the call is made, that our folks will respond, on a timely basis, and then if they're not negligent, then they already pay for it in a sense through their property taxes.
Well, I pay for it too then, because I pay my property tax that goes in the general fund. That's really a moot point, whether you pay taxes or not for the service. Everybody that owns property pays for public services. Anyway, whatever you guys decide to do, I just think that's a little strange that we would do something like that. And I know that was the discussion we had before when we did this, because I remember that was exactly, you brought it up, Mayor, about the taxes. So everybody that pays their taxes is paying this bill. And I don't know if that's true.
Yes, everybody
anyway,
that pays their taxes is paying for the Marysville services.
We're paying for a person that doesn't pay their bill.
We're paying for public services. I pay my taxes so I can have public services, including fire and police. Therefore, if I have an accident, they are there for my, their services are available to me. If I am negligent in causing something, then that's a different story. Then that goes beyond the services I'm expected from the city services that I'm expecting. That's how I'm seeing it.
That's the argument I have with you, Bruce, because I don't think negligence has to say anything about paying a bill. My house burns down because I put an undersized fuse in it, that's negligence. But my insurance is paying so much, and you're going to turn around and bail me for the rest of it, I should be responsible for it. Because I was negligent by doing that, but I did pay my taxes, and everybody else paid their taxes, but yet I get excused for the unpaid insurance.
But you're going to get your service covered because you paid your taxes. If you're doing your cooking scheme that you're speaking of and have a fire, you're gonna get those fire services because you paid your taxes. Now, if you
But it
threw the
didn't-
lighter fluid on the floor and lit up your house, that's gonna be negligence, and then you're gonna be charged for it.
With all due respect, Bruce, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that if I pay my taxes and my insurance doesn't cover the damage of the rapid response, then I should be responsible for paying the difference. I just did that on my wife's accident.
He's saying if the insurance
She was,
denies the claim.
Anyways, I'm not going to belabor the point. We had this argument once before, and that's the way they interpret it. That's the way I just had an issue with it. I've expressed my issue, and I think it's up to City Council what they want to do with it.
Okay. Go ahead, sir.
So, Bill, if I understand you correctly, you're saying that if your insurance company denies the claim, therefore you have to pay the bill that's coming from the fire recovery company. And you don't like that, or you're not agreeing with that?
I'm saying if my insurance carrier, as in this issue he has here, invoice submitted to insurance carrier, if no payment from carrier, invoice issued to responsible party, if no payment is made, no further action. Well, up here it says non-insured, that's part of the non-responsible. So if the insurance company doesn't pay for it, who's going to pay for it? You still have the charge of rapid response going out and doing something to that property.
The property owner would have to pay for it if the insurance company denies the claim, because insurance companies are insurance companies.
Well, they denied, that's what that's saying. If they deny the claim, then you invoice the party, but if no payment's made by the party, then no further action. So why have insurance?
I can't answer
Anyway, I beat it up. Let's move on with all your permission. I'll answer your questions, but I just don't know how far this is going to go. That was just a concern I had. I just feel that we're rewarding a person for not paying their bills. And we don't know,
So I think the point of clarification is that, I think the question is, why are we sending a bill if we're not expecting a payment? If we're not going to enforce a payment, right? So if we're sending a bill to a responsible Marysville person who's paying their taxes and already paying for these services, and the insurance carrier doesn't pay, you're wondering, and I think we had the same question, do we really need to send an invoice to the resident if we're not expecting them to pay? So I think that's what he's saying. Why are we doing that? Why are we sending a bill but really not expecting payment? So is that a step that we don't need to do, or is that common, or this is a question for the chief, is this normal, or is this something that we did?
No, that part is common for fire recovery. They do this with all of their agencies, where if the insurance does not pay the bill, they send the invoice on to the person at fault. And then from there, they either pay it or don't pay it, and then it triggers like the next layer of things. So that's where we can then weigh in to say, well, if they don't pay it, and it's a Marysville situation, and there was no gross negligence, then we can forego it going to collections, because that's where they have to get approval from us, for me, to go to collections specifically. So it's mainly a part of the process on how they work, is why the individual gets an invoice. And in some cases, the person feels like, you know what, I own it, I should pay it. And some might say, nope, I'm not going to pay it, so.
Mm-hmm. So then do some cities just go ahead and send that to collections even though they are residents and paying taxes?
It goes both ways.
Okay.
Some cities are doing that, and some cities are in the same scenario we are, where they forego for the community member based on some of the rationale that was used here tonight. And then some cities we want every nickel and dime,
Yeah.
and they're going the other way. So it's
Okay.
very situational.
Okay, thank you. Well, I feel good about leaving it the way it is, so, and
Okay.
because of that, because people.
Go ahead.
I do have a question based on here in the way it's worded. I think the spirit of it, I understand, but the wording in here on number 3, which Bill was referring to, if no payment from the carrier, then we issue an invoice to the responsible party. Why would that even be in there? Because we're not holding them responsible for it, correct?
Good point.
Because that is a part of the process. The fire recovery does not want to be in a situational for some this and for some that. And so from their criteria perspective, they want like uniformity on how they do their process. So they don't want to pick and choose, like some, get an invoice because their insurance didn't pay and some didn't.
I thought, okay, let's go back. I'm thinking from the original discussion now too. No Marysville residents got any type of a bill if they weren't negligent, if it was accidental. But if their insurance had some coverage, we went for the insurance coverage. Therefore, the expenses would be sent to the carrier, and if the carrier had coverage, if the homeowner had coverage from their carrier, they would pay. If not, the resident was not responsible because they were a Marysville resident. Not that they would then get an invoice because the insurance company didn't pay.
I guess the point is, if we tell the insurance company they're not negligent, don't send them a bill, period. Is that,
That's my point. And reading this, if you're trying to get literal, which it says submitted to the insurance carrier. If no payment from carrier, then invoice issued to the responsible party.
Maybe the step is ask.
That should be taken out.
Maybe the question is ask the jurisdiction if they're negligent or not, and if they're not, don't send them a bill. Maybe that's the part that I think people are having a hard time with, because, for example, the fire at the New Year's Eve party, New Year's Eve fire, they were calling him and say, we can make payments. You can make payments right now. Just give us, and he wasn't negligent, but he's being like, almost like, the person who's calling, not his fault. He's just being asked to do this, call this person and try to collect some monies. And luckily he knew my number, so he called me, hey, what's going on? Then we was able to refer to the chief, and then they were able to resolve. But I think in their operational, in their set of procedures is, insurance didn't pay, let's call the property owner or whoever. And
well, I don't think that should happen.
No,
but in my discussion with Ron, I believe that you said that only happened on occasion and it wasn't supposed to happen. Is that correct?
What we found out through the fire recovery is that is a part of the process. Because if not, I'll get a bunch more phone calls from fire recovery trying to ask this or that one. And that's what they don't want to do, is because they have 1,100 other agencies they bill for. And so they don't want to get in the process of having to call an agency for many cases. So that's why their process does what it does. It sends an invoice out because it's the process no matter what. And then from there, it's what's next, as Marty refers to. It's if, then what. So it's
going to make your life uncomfortable if every time they don't collect something, an invoice goes to the homeowner, and then you're going to get called, correct? And have to explain that, no, you don't owe this.
I've only gotten 2 phone calls since we started in September. One was from the fire in town where the person rents it and lives in Baja. And then this New Year's Eve fire situation, so.
Okay, so let me ask this question, back to the discussion you and I had before. Are those the only invoices that went out and you were contacted? Or are homeowners getting it regularly?
Yeah, they go out every time. The invoices are going out in every scenario. And
then
either
people are just not paying them?
Either the insurance is paying it, or the person is getting the invoice and they're paying it themselves. But I've only had 2 contesting phone calls so far at this point.
Through the chair. So my question is there a way you can code it ahead of time so that if the insurance doesn't pay in 0 days, that they won't bill the resident?
The only way is to look at all of the reports and and have conversations with them. And this is what they don't want to do, is have regular conversations. They want their process to, it's send it out, hope for the best, and then whatever happens next, that's then where it goes. And if it gets to a point where someone doesn't pay, then they reach out to me and say, okay, it was sent the invoice to the property owner and they are not paying it. What do you want to do? Collections or nothing? Those phone calls are easier and less than having to have more conversations about, what about this scenario? What about that scenario? Should we do this or that? Because they don't want to just set one course, and have all these scenarios.
Who determines the negligence? Is it you that determine, you guys determine it? So could it be noted on the report that this is a non-negligent event, and if the insurance isn't paid, don't bill the homeowner or property owner?
Yeah,
Is
I'd
that a
have to
note
go back
that
and
could
ask some more questions. I mean, pretty much the direction they gave me is like, this is the way this operation runs with the invoicing and the process. It's easier for me on the backside to have these conversations with these people to say, no, this scenario does not qualify for you to pay, than it is to not have them do their process and me get more phone calls or have to reach out to them for multiple scenarios and try and, pick and choose which ones happen.
What if we could have what are you wanting to say? We could send something out to the property owner or the person to say, if your insurance doesn't pay, you're not going to be liable for the bill that you're going to get from this company?
There could be things that we could do within a department that would be more proactive in that scenario. That's just going to take more time and staff time and effort to do that. But there are things we could do on our end that are less restricting than on their end.
And then they would they would know when they get a bill, wondering, why am I getting a bill for this service that I'm already being taxed for? Right? That would answer their question, and that would take people out of a panic, like, oh my gosh, I've got to pay this bill. So that's what I'm thinking.
Through the chair,
Hold on, city manager.
I can't see if anybody's through, so thank you.
Chief Carlin, if, on item number 3, if we submitted an invoice to the insurance carrier and there's no negligence, we could just stop there and we could give that direction to Fire Recovery USA, right?
No.
We can't do that. They can't just
they
do the insurance and then stop.
they don't want to have different scenarios and trigger points for different things. So their protocols are that which they would send an invoice to, because I've had this conversation, we're like, well, let's just stop right there and not go any farther.
And then you'll decide if it goes to the next level.
Yeah, and if there's gross negligence, then, maybe I reach out to them and say, oh, this is gross negligence, we want to bill them. So their system, like I said, it's a robust system, it's 1,100 agencies, you can imagine the workload they spit out every day in this process, and so they try not to have special circumstances for each agency's 1,100 and having different criteria.
So then the only other option is to do negligence, no negligence, it doesn't matter, we're gonna stop it after we submit to the insurance carrier. You could give that direction, right? Just say, that's it, that's as far as we're gonna go, and don't do anything no matter what the
You probably could do
scenario.
that across the board,
Yes.
like for everybody.
Right.
Non-residents and residents.
So it's either this approach basically, or it's
Yeah.
a kind of cut and dry approach with everybody, including non-Marysville residents.
Did Bill have something?
Yeah, sorry.
This is not how I understood it at all when we
I've asked to be recognized.
Oh, I'm sorry, Bill, go ahead.
Thank you. If you'll note down the bottom where it says, please note, the second sentence says, the insurance carrier is a primary billable entity seeking recovery for an accident. Should the insurance not cover the actual costs, the fire department's response time and service, the fire chief will evaluate the situation and whether reasonable negligence occurred. For these incidents, the collection agency may be used to secure. That sentence could be put up there and to not have where it says no payments, no further action. There is an action. The action is the fire chief will evaluate the situation.
Yes.
And make it conditional. He's the man that says yes or no. But right now it's saying if they don't respond, we don't submit and we don't no further payment. But down here it doesn't say that.
Agreed.
But if you take that second sentence, just put it up in there, and then I think I would be happy. I don't know if you
Does
guys
staff
would be
want to
happy
return
or
on
not.
this?
Why you continue that?
But I'd be happy.
Let's continue this item if you don't, let staff give them a chance to kind of, because it seemed to be, you've identified a conflict. Let staff come back. There is a question go ahead.
I think my conflict is different than
Okay.
Mr. Simmons. My conflict is
Bill.
Bill. When we originally said this, we said, if it was not out of negligence, a citizen was not going to be charged whether their insurance company paid something or didn't pay anything, because we're paying for public services through our property taxes. Now we're saying that if the insurance carrier doesn't pay it, it's going to go to the responsible party, and if they don't pay it, no further action. The problem I have with that is, what about the homeowner that is trying to be the good citizen and starts paying their bill, compared to someone that says, no, I'm not going to pay my bill? That's not fair that people are under the assumption that they have to pay on top of their public services.
If they didn't push back, then they were stuck with the bill.
If they don't push back, I don't think that's fair. They don't know they can push back.
Yeah.
But
That's my point.
That's insurance companies though, Bruce.
That's not insurance company. We're talking about sending it to the homeowner, to the responsible party.
If the responsible party has an insurance clause in there that says your renter, whatever the case is, isn't, following
This says
procedures.
if not. With what you're saying, it says right here, invoice submitted to insurance carrier. If no payment from the carrier, the invoice issued to the responsible party.
Which is the homeowner.
Right, that's not right. They should not, because what's going to happen here is that people are going to believe that they owe that, and I do not believe they should owe it. They're paying for their services through their property taxes.
Yeah, they are paying for services and property taxes. We're just trying to do a recovery of funds, and if the insurance
And
company.
I don't think we should be going after recovery of funds on citizens that are already paying for fire service.
They're already paying for the fire services, and their insurance should take care of it.
I agree, the insurance should take care of it.
Should take care of it.
But if they don't, the homeowner is getting a bill, or the car owner, or whatever the call might be.
Then they should have
It's
read
not
the
just gonna
clauses.
be home
Hold
fire
on.
insurance.
Hold on.
It's
Hold on.
obviously
We don't-
other issues too.
I think the bottom line, we don't have to have this service. We can put that service away, right?
So,
Put it aside, not
Okay.
have a recovery, payment, cost, program, right? And get a third party involved in this, right? I mean, we can just say, we're not gonna have that. By putting this in place, what we're saying is, in my mind, I think the discussion is, if you're negligent and you're causing damage not only to yourself or to like your neighbor's property or whatever it may be, because of negligence, gross
That's in a
negligence,
different
that's a
line
different
there.
category, that's number
That's a
4, right?
different category.
Correct, and
And I agree with you on negligence.
yeah, I think number 3, and what Councilmember Simmons has kind of identified is, it was an accident. Fire department came in, supported me, was able to help me out. Now I get this bill. And I'm telling you, the bill after you lose your house after a fire is like, this is another bill. I thought I paid, this is an accident.
But it doesn't only refer to homes. It
Oh, yeah, I know. It
refers
could
to,
be car
it refers
accidents.
to
It
a
could-
car accident
Oh, yeah, it could be
too,
all kinds of
which-
things, right?
Which may not have the insurance, which may have a minimal amount of insurance, if any insurance, for the fire service.
And then-
And then those people are gonna get a bill?
Yeah, they will.
That's not right.
That's, I think, yeah, no, it does. And I
it
think,
happens.
Pardon me?
That has happened.
but from the
Yeah, I
city,
know it's
but
happened.
it
It's
shouldn't
not-
happen for the
it's
city.
not right.
Decades.
No?
It's happened for decades in other jurisdictions.
Well, I don't care about other jurisdictions.
They call it ICD-9
I care
billing.
about
Okay,
ours
okay,
and
okay.
our citizens
Let's-
that are, we're
I think-
trying to double dip on them.
Correct. I think, let's give staff time to come back on this issue. I think there's room for them to be able to explain some of the differences that I think Simmons has actually come up with. I'm asking the council members to talk to staff, to maybe get more clarification on some of the questions you may have. and let's come back to this at our next, whatever the staff wants to come back with this, because I think we can go back and forth and continue to have differences of opinion, which is fine, but I think we need more information from staff to continue this discussion. Is that fair? Is that-
It's me.
Okay.
That's fine.
So we'll give staff time, we'll table this to whatever next meeting staff needs to have.
April 21st.
April 21st to continue this discussion.
And put a time limit on it.
April 21st, sir.
I'm talking about discussion time, 10 minutes.
Okay. I know there was a question from the public, so I'll allow the public to ask a question.
We actually have 3 questions.
Okay.
First and foremost, if anybody's listening and I misstate something, please just reply back in the comments for clarification. Our first comment/question is from Kelly Rich Creek. What about citizens that don't pay property taxes? There's no follow-up, so I'm not sure who she's referring to, if it's a tenant versus an owner.
Okay, like vehicle owners or something?
Right.
So,
If you're a
through
renter,
the chair.
Or a renter?
Through the chair, if a person doesn't pay property taxes, it should be up to the landlord to require renter's insurance for them to rent said domicile. So however the landlord wishes to work that out with their renter is up to them in their lease agreement.
Well, I think we're talking about the property, like if the house goes on fire, it belongs to someone, right? Like the bill's not gonna go to the renter, the bill's gonna go to the property owner, I imagine.
Automatically.
Yeah,
yes.
so.
but they're the ones paying.
They're the ones paying
The
into, so it's the
property
property
taxes.
owners, the property taxes that we're talking about, Kelly, so.
The
I'm not-
services, though, fire services are paid for out of the general fund. So anything from fire service is a combination of property and sales tax. So a renter who lives here and shops here is also contributing to the general fund and hence the fire department's budget.
Question number 2 is from Becca Saavedra, and wondering if we can amend the wording on the bills that go to the homeowners to relieve some sort of stress or worry about receiving that bill.
That's good input, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
And our third question is from Live Streaming YS. Does this also apply to auto accidents and medical responses?
Yes. Yes, it would, right?
Not medical aids.
Not
just
medical
vehicle
aids.
accidents.
Can you clarify it then, sir?
Well, this fire recovery program does not cover EMS medical calls.
Thank you.
Statement, Mayor?
Yes.
Interject. There is a ordinance that says that the homeowner or emergency response, EMS response, they get 3 non-paid, the 4th they pay for. So there is an ordinance on that. That has nothing to do with this. It's a completely different situation. In fact, the idea was that when it was put in, it was to prevent people from using EMS and a trip to the hospital and using that as their primary insurance. So they get three freebies under the ordinance, under the code. And the 4th one they pay for. I'll just throw that out for the citizen who inquired about that.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Any other comments? Seeing none, we'll just move forward to committee reports. Any committee reports?
So through the chair, at my last LAFCO meeting, an interesting conversation was brought up that I haven't had a chance to share with everybody. The chair, Mr. Andy Vasquez, brought up an interesting conversation topic that we're just in the beginning stages of, but there's a lot to discuss. He wants to open up a workshop with our local LAFCO as to the potential idea of the city of Marysville annexing Linda and Olivehurst. So I know that has been a discussion in the past. There was no real in-depth discussion on it. It's not a horrible idea. I know that it was brought up after a conversation I had with Marty a couple days ago that something else had been okayed in 2012, but that should probably be amended for the city of Marysville once we get our general plan going. Please correct me if I'm wrong, Marty. And once we get our general plan going, that we would be able to annex a portion of Linda swath cut up to the east off of the Yuba River, and that's already said and done within LAFCO. But there was a lot of public service questions in regards to that idea right there that needs to probably be looked at again if we do that. I don't really know where we're going to go with this. It's pretty much just an idea that was brought up for a workshop conversation. How that is going to may lay out over the next couple of years is something worth keeping our ears open and asking legit questions. That's all I got.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, and one more thing about the LAFCO. There was a statement brought up in the past why the city of Marysville is now paying more to LAFCO. And I asked the same question at the meeting, and it was discussed. Marty, how much are we paying right now?
Approximately 75,000 in that neighborhood.
A year?
It recently went up, right, to, it's because the budget was increased
It's between 56 and 57,000
A year.
56 and 57.
a year, correct.
So I know that, Bruce, that you brought this question up a while ago. Unanimously, the LAFCO decided to increase the membership fees so they could augment their reserve account, which is sitting at like $20,000 for the LAFCO board right now for Yuba County. So that was why it was done. I just wanted to share that with the rest of the council in case you guys didn't have that information. As to the rest of the expenses, I'd be more than happy to show you.
Can I ask a question on that?
Sure.
The thing that I had brought up previously was the way that that bill was divided up among Wheatland and Marysville, who pick up half the bill, am I correct?
That's correct.
Right.
And then Yuba County, who picks up the other half. And when it comes out to any type of acreage or any type of population, we're overpaying along with Wheatland. And that was what my big question was, not of it being raised, but why are we paying?
Okay.
Because of the 50% between us and Wheatland, I believe we pay more than 50% of that, correct?
Well,
That's not an even split
It's not, it's a little bit more, you're right.
than
Yeah.
what they pay.
Yes.
So that was my concern, why are we getting
It's an
nailed
obscure calculation.
with that? What's that?
It's an obscure calculation.
Yeah,
I'm not
the
even familiar
calculation
with how
was
they
just
do
not
it.
fair.
I think it's the county that pays between 75 and 80,000 a year. We pay the 56, 57, it's fluctuated, and then Wheatland pays around 25,000.
Anyway, that was my point of where my concern is falling with LAFCO, is how it's decided. It's a very unfair process on top of trying to change the process is very unfair too, because I understand it has to be 50% plus from all three agencies.
All three
Wheatland,
agencies would have to pass a resolution to change the structure.
Yeah, Marysville, Wheatland, and Yuba County, and obviously Yuba County is never going to vote that and pick up their fair share.
And I don't have an answer to that, Bruce. I'm just sharing with you the information I have.
Sure.
As to what the criteria was for the fee schedule that's set forth to the agencies, I will have to do some more digging if you haven't already and get back to you on that. But that was the reason for an increase, was to secure a reserve fund for Yuba County LAFCO.
I don't want to expand on LAFCO, but if special districts don't contribute to LAFCO, then we'll continue being in this mess. So if OPUD, who acts like a city or a municipality, or Linda Fire or other municipalities are acting like service providers in our county, but aren't being asked to contribute to LAFCO, and I think that's where we want to push in asking our special districts to support LAFCO. That would decrease some of our contributions if we get folks like Oliver's, who acts like a city, who wants to, grow and expand and have infrastructure and provide services out there. They're acting like a city, but they're not contributing to folks like LAFCO. So I would like to ask her to say, hey, districts, be part of LAFCO, because you're asking us to make sure we look at your service reviews, and so we're the entity that does that, but you're not even supporting that. So So my whole thing about LAFCO is, let's get the special districts to be part of it and have a voting and have a voice in LAFCO. Otherwise, like you said, the county's never gonna say, hey, yeah, let me pay a little bit more
Yeah.
because we're nice.
And OPUD was just the beneficiary of LAFCO,
Correct?
and they pay nothing in, so,
Yes.
again, I totally agree with you, Mr. Mayor.
That's all I got.
Question, is LAFCO a JPA, Joint Powers Agreement?
No, it's a state law. This part of the state charter.
Yes.
Our charter or the state?
State
mandated?
It's the state mandates. It's law. It's the.
Okay.
It's the Cortese-Knox Act, is what governs LAFCOs all across the state.
And half of the assembly members don't know what that is, so.
Yeah, right. Well, I didn't know whether that was a JPA or a Cortese. I'd forgotten that. Thank you.
Any other committee reports? Councilmember, Vice Mayor, would you like to talk a little bit about our committee, our ad hoc committee work?
Yeah, we had, last week, I guess it was, we got back to work with our Ellis Lake ad hoc committee. We had all the experts there. Craig was there. I'm not sure he was one of the experts, but Craig was there.
He's an expert.
And anyway, it's moving forward. Yuba Water Agency still seems to be hot and heavy on the whole idea. We did have I think somebody brought this up earlier, we did have I think it was Mr. Simmons brought up, we did have our own gathering here before we went to that with the mayor, Marty, myself, Jonathan, and Craig, to kind of take a look at where we want to see this all go as a city, and then, approach the agency with it. So right at this point, it's as usual, things move slow, but they are moving. They did walk out the door and say, run the fountain 24/7. I'm not sure how official that comment was, but that is what they said. So anyway, it's moving forward with some good stuff going on. The only question I had, Craig, do you know what is the schedule on the fountain right now? Do we have I know it's running. I've gotten people telling me it's running again.
Currently, we are just testing everything for operation so we can monitor it during daylight hours. It is running roughly 9 to 3.
9 to
daily.
3? 9 to 3?
Yes.
7 days?
7 days.
Okay.
We will shut it down sometime next week so we can go inspect all the infrastructure.
So the
Then we'll
lights
start
are
it
not
back
coming
up.
on yet? 'Cause
No,
it's
we're
running
not.
in the daytime.
We are not running the lights right now. We are just testing the fountain itself and all the repairs that have been made.
It's 9 a.m. to 3 p.m.?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other committee reports? Seeing none, any council correspondence?
No, Mayor.
Thank you. City manager report, Ms. Brown.
Very quickly, just a reminder, the council knows, and it's pretty public now, but just a reminder to the public that City Hall will be closed until further notice in response to the recommendations and guidance that we've received from the state and federal government on the COVID-19 virus, not named after our conference room. And so meetings like tonight's council meeting and planning commission meetings will also be restricted and will be closed to the public until further notice. And we'll be continuing to follow the direction of both the state and federal government as well as the county, the bi-county region, the public health officer. So information is coming out every day, changing every day, so stay tuned and we'll keep you up to date as quickly as we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Council comments, Councilmember McKenzie?
Yes, thank you. I wanted to first say what a great evening we had Saturday night at the fire department, fire station, for the dinner. We just did a beautiful job, and it was really exciting to see what's been accomplished in that station in the last couple of years, just with the remodel and the new equipment and a room full of happy people who love their fire chief. So good job on that. And I also wanted to say that I was at the grocery store today, this afternoon. I hadn't been to the grocery store in a little while. I went to Save Mart, and I was just really, my heart was just went out to everybody because it just felt like people were fearful. And so I just want to encourage anybody listening to not fear and to be calm and just go ahead and take the precautions that we need to take, but not to worry to a point where we're panicking and not, buying more groceries than we need and all that kind of thing. And I just hate to see people in the city getting to that point, knowing that we haven't even had a case that's been acknowledged yet. So I just want to encourage people to just follow the wise precautions and stay calm in the city. Then another thing that I wanted to report to you was that I know I've talked about it, I alluded to it a little bit, but I'm the director of the Yuba Sutter Community Task Force, and I do represent the city in a small way there and let them know what's going on with the city. But we had a really productive and exciting meeting last Thursday with Marysville Joint Unified School District, principals and staff, some community service group leaders like Rotary and Kiwanis, and some pastors, and talking about how we can develop some relationships, some community partnership relationship with the schools to help support student success. And so anyway, that's a project that we're working on, and so I'll let you know how that's going. But everybody was really excited about that, and so I'm hoping to get the community more engaged with the schools and help bring our school performance up in our city, in this district. So I will keep you updated as I have more to share.
Thank you. Mr. Hudson?
Oh. So, yeah, there's a lot to come. And it was a good dinner with the fire department. Thank you, Chief, and Marysville Fire Department for making that happen. It was really good to see some accolades and some mustache awards go out to some of the crew. That was it was fun. And so forth. I appreciate those times. So yeah, I got a lot to say, but I'm not gonna make this grandstand. I hate being the center of attention, whatever the case is. I am a temporary elected official, and that means that I'm a temporary leader for the city of Marysville. We are Marysville, and what we do affects thousands of people within the city of Marysville, and what we decide and what we say. I just think that, we also need to remember that because of the fact that we don't have any known cases within the city of Marysville or Yuba County or Sutter County, that we don't necessarily need to keep drinking the Kool-Aid that has been set forth. I realize that what I say is not going to be very popular, nor do I really care. It's kind of one of those things that if people don't like what's going on, they say it, and they say it to me and my establishment. If we make these sanctions within the city of Marysville, as in shelter in place, we need to realize that the economic downturn is going to be substantial. We will tank a lot of businesses here in the city of Marysville, and that is unfortunate. Let's just be smart on how we lead this community, and enforcing some of the recommendations that have been set forth by the state, federally, whatever the case is. We're all adults in a free country. We make our own decisions until we go into a socialism type situation. And I hope that we don't get to that point. We just need to remember the lives that we will be affecting by enforcing certain things that aren't necessarily a concern within our region of Marysville at this particular juncture. Peace.
Thank you. Councilmember Simmons?
I am on restrictions. I can't even go out of the house, so I don't have much to report. Thank you.
Okay. Vice Mayor?
I totally agree with Councilman Hudson, but I also think preparedness is the most important, not overreacting. And so I do think we need to be careful with how we proceed, but I think it's always worth being prepared, just as we approve this tonight. Also, I want to thank the chief for the dinner. It was a good time. I mean, I don't know how many pictures your guys take. They ought to be working more, taking less. We must have had about 1,000 pictures, didn't we?
Slideshow?
No, it was a lot of fun. The whole thing was a lot of fun. And every one of you guys promised me a ride in the truck. In fact, one of them told me I could drive it.
Oh,
I told him I don't think so, but that's all right. So anyway, spirited meeting tonight, but I think very worthwhile.
Thank you. And, I work in as you know, I work for a nonprofit, and we provide childcare services to a lot of our families and our communities and stuff. And we've had to close that down. Our preschool centers, we've closed down all our centers in 8 counties in Northern California. It's going to affect a lot of families because now they have to kind of figure out how do they take care of their childcare needs and stuff if they have to go to work. Yeah, I think things are different. In my mind, the scientists that are speaking, and I think our local scientist, our local health officer, I think she's done a really good job in kind of maintaining, adequate amount of information, allow us to kind of, continue, doing our day-to-day. We have to be a productive city, state, county, because otherwise, as Councilmember Hudson says, I mean, things are going to break down really quickly if people can't pay for the rent, if they can't pay for the bills, if they have to neglect whatever other things they have to do to be able to survive. And so it seems to be getting to a point where we have to find that balance in ensuring that we continue being productive as a society, as a city, as a county, as a state, as a country, and ensuring that we also protect those that are in a really risky situation, especially some folks who may have chronic diseases. The data shows that it affects a lot of our older populations and with respiratory issues, and what we don't want to have is a situation where our health providers, our hospital gets inundated with a lot of cases where they can't even deal with our current emergencies, whether it's a heart attack or some other issues that people have to deal with. So layering additional issues to our systems, and that includes our first responders. That includes our fire department, our fire department, even our public works. They're going to have to deal with additional things that they didn't have to deal with. Our city manager has to deal with things that she didn't have to deal with, a month or 2 months ago, and it's being added to their plate. So we have to be recognize that as well. I think we should be happy in the sense that we have a cushion in our reserves, so then we don't have to find ourselves, if revenues do start decreasing in our coffers because people aren't purchasing or aren't doing business in the city of Marysville or whatever it may be, that we can continue the level of services that we have. So I just want to make sure that people in Marysville understand that we do have a cushion, and we'll continue doing our best to assure that we maintain the high level of services that you currently have. So we have adequate public safety to assure that it doesn't, that those things will be there, and if we need to add additional resources, that we have some capacity to be able to do that. And we look forward to hearing from our staff as things move along that we may need additional resources. So as council, we're going to have to make those decisions as things move forward. Maybe they'll come back and say we need additional resources to kind of assure some order in our city. We are a bit of an island in the sense that our county is only 70,000 people, but 60,000 people come through our city on a daily basis because it's 2 state highways between us, and a lot of people work here, and a lot of people do business here. The hospital is in the middle of our city. Caltrans is here. So there's a lot of business going on in the city of Marysville, but we only have 12,000 people to support the city in many ways. So we're kind of a but again, we're in a good spot. I think staff are doing the right thing. I think the city manager and her staff are dealing with in a way that is not, they're not making decisions based on emotion. They're being rational, they're thinking about it, they're going through the process, so I appreciate the time that you guys are taking in making these decisions. They're hard decisions. Closing down City Hall is a hard decision, but let's assure the public that we want to maintain our city staff healthy so they can continue providing these services. And that's a good thing. It is a different time, and it's probably not going to get any better. It might get worse. So let's stick together. Let's continue having rational discussions, and let's support staff in their ability to analyze the situation and provide us with good information to make decisions. That's all I got on that.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Make sure that we vet
Ted?
and use that live for streaming this so people can watch. And just if people don't know, you can donate to Yuba Sutter Live. You can donate to Yuba Sutter Live so he can continue to do the streaming, but it's going to be a big help for us with us having to have City Hall closed. So thank you, Ted.
You're welcome.
Thank you for that. Are there any public comments regarding closed session item?
Not at this time, Mayor.
Seeing none, we'll move to closed session pursuant to Government Code Section G65495.6.8. So let's reconvene to open session. Next meeting will be our special council meeting, Tuesday the 30th.